December 1800. The edge of the known world. Imagine, if you can, a place so desolate that even the seabirds seem to scream in warning. Far off the rugged, storm-beaten coast of Scotland, lost in the grey churning graveyard of the North Atlantic, lies a cluster of jagged rocks known as the Flannan Isles. To the locals on the Isle of Lewis, they are the Seven Hunters, ancient, lonely, and shrouded in a superstition so thick it is felt in the marrow of your bones. For centuries, sailors have whispered that these rocks do not belong to the living. They speak of phantom birds, and of spirits that have guarded these stones since the dawn of time. On the largest of these rocks, Island Moor, stands a lighthouse, a magnificent, lonely pillar of white stone, rising 150 feet above the crashing surf. It was meant to be a beacon of hope, a mechanical star to guide the lost. But on the night of December 15th, the captain of the steamer Archtor, battling through a heavy squall, noticed a darkness that should not have been there. The light was out. No beam swept across the black waves. No warning was given to the ships passing through the treacherous Flannan Trap. For 11 long, agonizing days, if the world wondered, for 11 days, the Seven Hunters kept their secret. When a relief ship finally fought through the gale to investigate, they didn't find a broken lamp. They found a silence so profound, it seemed to have weight. Welcome back to Vanish Point. Today, we step onto the cold, cursed stone of Island Moor to uncover the mystery of 3 experienced men who vanished into thin air and the terrifying entries left behind in a logbook that defies all reason. The relief vessel, Hesperus, did not arrive until Boxing Day, December 26th. Storms had kept her at bay, as if the ocean itself was trying to prevent the world from seeing what had happened. As the ship approached the island, the air was unnaturally still, and the sky was the color of a fresh bruise. Captain James Harvey fired a signal gun, its boom echoing off the cliffs like a funeral dirge. He launched a rocket, a bright flare against the gray, expecting to see the 3 keepers, James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur, running down to the landing stage. But the island remained dead. No flag was raised on the staff. Not a single soul appeared on the jagged rocks. Joseph Moore, the relief keeper who knew these men as brothers, was lowered into a small boat. He was a man of the sea, but as he climbed the steep, slippery steps of the Atlantic Way, he felt a primal urge to turn back. A sense of dread, cold and heavy, settled in his gut. The gate was locked. The main entrance door bolted from the inside. When Moore finally forced his way into the lighthouse, he called out their names. His voice, usually strong, felt thin and fragile. It echoed off the cold, curved walls, returning to him, unanswered. He reached the kitchen. There, he found a scene frozen in time, a table set for a meal, mutton, potatoes, and pickles. The food remained, but the men were gone. A chair lay toppled on the floor, as if someone had stood up in a sudden, violent panic. In the heart of the tower, Moore found a scene that defied every rule of the service. The lamps were cleaned, The wicks were trimmed, the oil was refilled. The keepers had performed their duties with military precision, right up until the very moment. They ceased to exist. Everything was in its place, except for the men themselves. But then, Moore noticed the oilskins, the heavy, yellow waterproof coats, essential for surviving a North Atlantic winter. 2 sets were missing, only one remained, hanging on its peg. This detail, small as it may seem, is the key to the horror. In the strict rules of the Northern Lighthouse Board, one man must always remain inside the tower at all times. James Ducat and Thomas Marshall were professionals. They would never both leave the tower during a storm. And more importantly, Donald MacArthur, the man left behind, would never face a gale in his shirt sleeves. Did something happen so fast, so utterly terrifying that MacArthur ran out into the freezing rain without a coat? Or did he follow his comrades into the dark, knowing that his coat would no longer be needed? Moore searched every corner. He found the beds made. He found the heat long gone from the stove. But of the 3 men, there is not a trace, no footprints on the wet stone, no signs of a struggle, not a single drop of blood. The island was as clean as it was empty. To understand the disappearance, we must understand the rock itself. Building a lighthouse on Island Moore was considered an impossible feat of engineering. For years, the Atlantic thwarted every attempt to land stone and mortar on the 7 hunters. The men who built it spoke of strange shadows and voices that carried on the wind, even when the air was still. They felt they were being watched by the ancient guardians of the rock. James Ducat, the principal keeper, was a man of 43. He was steady, reliable, a father of 4. Thomas Marshall was 28, a man with a bright future, and Donald MacArthur, the occasional keeper, was a veteran of the sea, 60 years old, and known for his physical strength and iron will. These were not men who frightened easily. They were not men who would succumb to the cabin fever of isolation. They were the elite of the lighthouse service. And yet, as the official logbook would later reveal, something on that island had broken them. Something had turned these iron men into trembling wrecks days before they vanished. When the investigators opened the logbook, they found the final entries, written in the steady hand of Thomas Marshall. These words have haunted maritime historians for over a century. Entries that suggest the men weren't just fighting a physical storm. They were battling for their very souls. December 12th, gale, north by northwest. Sea lashed to fury. Never seen such a storm. Marshall writes that Ducat was quiet. He writes that the tough, brawling MacArthur was crying. Think about that. A 60-year-old veteran of the North Atlantic, reduced to tears by the wind. But here is the chilling truth. Meteorological records from the mainland and from ships in the area show no storms on December 12th, 13th, or 14th. The weather was described as settled. The sea was calm. Who or what was Marshall describing? Were they seeing a storm that existed only in their minds, or was a localized supernatural tempest? raging only around the Seven Hunters. The final entry, dated December 15th, is the most haunting of all. It simply reads, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." By the time the steamer Arch tore passed the island just hours later, the light was already cold, the men had been taken, and the sea was silent. The official investigation, led by Robert Muirhead, focused on the western landing. He found iron railings, thick and heavy, twisted like wet straw, a supply box, positioned 110 feet above the sea, had been smashed to splinters. Huge boulders, weighing several tons, had been tossed around the cliffs like pebbles. Muirhead concluded that a freak wave, a rogue wall of water, must have swept the men away. It is the scientific answer, the one that allows us to sleep at night. But science cannot explain the locked doors. It cannot explain the missing coats, or the chair toppled in the kitchen, and it certainly cannot explain the phantom storm in the logbook. Eileen Moore is automated now. No human heart beats within its stone walls. The light still turns, a solitary yet watchful eye in the darkness. But the mystery of December 1900 remains as cold and as impenetrable as the rock itself. Were they victims of nature, or did they find something out there, in the fog? Some vanishings are tragedies of the physical world. Others are whispers from a darkness we were never meant to light. This has been Vanish Point. If you found value in this mystery, subscribe and help us light the way through history's darkest corners. Until next time, stay out of the fog.